The Mets finally shut out a team this year. Did they also finally shut me up about what they should be doing?
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host and every Met fan's favorite podcaster, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I've been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now, and this is my sixth full season here at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Hey, I'm doing double duty this season. I'm doing 5 episodes a week of Locked On MLB and 5 completely different episodes of Locked On A's. So if you like what we're doing here, hell, you can watch us every single day, twice. There you go. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully, but Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. If you listen to Locked On MLB or Locked On A's every single day of the week, make sure to put on that hashtag every day Sully, so I have an idea who's listening to us every single day. Hey, this episode of Locked On MLB is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah, the right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. Hey, I realized something. The last episode I did, don't worry, we'll talk about the Mets and talk about whether or not I am going to eat my words. We'll see. You know what? There's suspense there. I had a really cool trivia question set up at the end of the last show, and I forgot to say it. So I'm going to say it at the end of this show, and we're going to see who gets the trivia question there. Okay. For well over a month now, I have been saying, and I've said this many times, I've said that the Mets are in a strange situation where they are playing in a very bunched together and weird National League, and that it is an absolute seller's market. If you have any usable assets, any tradable assets, if you have them, you can get more than you normally could because there's so many teams on the cusp of contention, and there's so many teams that have a sense of desperation, like the Yankees, like the Dodgers, like so many teams that put all their chips in the center of the table, like the Phillies that had all this pressure to win right here and now. And there's a lot of teams that are on the cusp of it, like the Padres and the Cardinals and the Nationals and the Pirates, and the Diamondbacks who were wanting to go back in, and the Cubs who are trying to make a run. All these teams that are there, that the Mets, who I kept pointing out were a sub-500 team on the outside looking into the playoffs, should take advantage of that. And if it brought in at least 1 or even 2 usable young players into their system, then it would be worth it. Now, I've been saying that for well over a month. And yes, the Mets had an unbelievable, fantastic June. But that didn't change my mind because, as I pointed out on a couple of different episodes, they started that great run on the outside looking in of the playoffs with a sub-500 record. They ended the run with a sub-500 record on the outside looking in of the playoffs. And the run ended, and they started playing around 500 ball, and I stuck to my guns. Now, it's an important thing if you want to be a decent human being or an honest human being, is to admit when you're wrong. And now is a time to point out the fact that I'm impressed with the Mets on a lot of different levels. First of all, while they have not been playing great ball since the end of that run in June, they've held their own. And now they are 2 games above 500, and they've won some tight games. And today they shut out the Washington Nationals, the first shutout that they've had all year long. And J.D. Martinez, why can't the Red Sox get players like J.D. Martinez? JD Martinez got on base 4 times today and got a big double. And then you saw Nimmo drove in 3 runs. Alonso got on base twice. Harrison Bader got on it. I know his name's Bader. I said it wrong. And then Peterson, Maton, their new pickup, former Astros World Series champion. Nunez, who's been up and down. Ottavino struck out the side. It was a 7-0 victory. And with that victory, the Mets have moved into a tie for the 3rd wild card spot. And so they're tied with the San Diego Padres. And they're actually 2 games ahead of the Padres in the loss column. So I can no longer say the Mets are a sub 500 team on the outside looking into the playoffs. And I have to tip my cap to the Mets and say, well, I'm impressed by that. Now, there's 2 factors going on here. And this isn't taking anything away from the Mets and their fabulous, their fantastic June that they had. But the fact of the matter is that since basically the end of their run was around June 28th, and then they started to slow down a bit. Since then, the Mets are, what was the record since then? Since then, they've gone 7-6 in their last 13 games. They've cooled down. They're 1 game above 500. But here's the thing that I didn't take into account. What I was saying, the risk was if the Mets slowed down, and they have, that it opened the door for some other team to go on a big run. And here's the deal. No other team in the National League has gone on a big run. Every team in the National League, with the exception of the Diamondbacks, who have been very good the last couple of weeks, and the Marlins, who have been dreadful, have been hovering right around 500. Every team has done that. And I didn't take that into account. I thought some team would pick it up. I thought some team would pick up the mantle. The Cubs are playing better ball. And you're saying Cincinnati's starting to play better ball. But no team in the National League has picked up the ball and started running with it the way the Mets did in June. So they're still in kind of a dangerous spot. Now, I will pull back. One thing I said a couple of times is I said this gives them a chance to dump Nimmo's contract. A lot of people got on me for that. Nimmo is a fan favorite. And Nimmo is actually producing. Nimmo is actually he was on my all-star team. So, okay, fan favorite. You want him in uniform when they finally turn the corner. Got it. I'm still nervous about the Mets situation for this reason. Everyone's treading water. Every one of these teams are treading water. Since the Mets went on the great run, everyone's been sort of simmering, playing around 500 ball. And it will only take one team out of this bunch to have put the aft thrusters on after the All-Star break. The thing that makes it a nervous time, at least if you're on the outside looking in, is that the trade deadline is basically in 20 days, in 3 weeks. They have 3 weeks. Now, I do not think the Mets should trade away any minor leaguer, anyone in their farm. And I also still think they could get something if they part with some of their expiring contracts. One of the weirdest things to do is nothing. Now, I still am worried, as I said, this whole National League is primed for a team to have just a great run after the All-Star break. And the team that does that is probably going to shoot right up the wild card standings. It could be the Mets with the way they played in June, but they have calmed down. Ironically, they leapfrogged into the postseason run after they calmed down. Now, a bunch of people have accused me of hating the Mets. I don't hate the Mets. I want to see the Mets do well. I don't think this is the team that's going to win the National League pennant. I think they're building towards it. But something hit me that every team that Buck Showalter leaves goes to the World Series. And Baltimore sure looks like a team that could be World Series bound, even though they've slowed down a little bit recently. Would it be something that the last two teams that Buck Showalter left would meet each other in the World Series? So Met fans will still be buyers. They already picked up relievers from the Rays. Yes, I know. I'm aware. I mentioned Maton earlier. I don't think they should be big buyers. I don't think they should dip into their farm system too deep. I think they should maybe make fringe moves or something like that. And I'm still thinking they're one bad stretch away from falling back out. They're tied for the final wild card spot. And I still think they could get something for those expiring contracts. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And if we look up at the trade deadline and they're up 2 or 3 games in one of the wild card spots, I will admit I was wrong. Just like I admitted I was wrong on the Shohei Ohtani thing. I'm still nervous for them. Being tied for the 3rd wild card spot or being able to take advantage of a seller's market, I don't know. But in the Mets' favor, they're going to be playing Colorado and Miami. And that may be, if they play well there, they may be able to pick up a bunch of games. And speaking of Colorado, the other team in New York, who everyone's talking doom and gloom, including myself, is a playoff team right now. And they should be talking to Colorado every single day. I'll explain why. Hey, this episode of Locked On MLB is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. I went on a fabulous trip to upstate New York this summer. I got to see the Syracuse Mets play. I went to Buffalo, I saw the Buffalo Bisons play, and then went all the way to Cooperstown and had a fabulous time there. And each time I stayed at a great place thanks to Booking.com. I was in downtown Buffalo, which, by the way, is a lovely city. It's a fabulous city, and I had a great hotel right in that fantastic downtown. Then I went to Syracuse, stayed in a great hotel, a nice, safe part of town near the college, and then to Cooperstown. Fabulous bed and breakfast where I was walking distance to the lake and to the Hall of Fame. All of them through Booking.com. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay. From hotels that look over stadiums to that fantastic bed and breakfast, Booking.com has so many choices across the United States. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today at Booking.com, on the site, or at the Booking.com app. Booking.com. Yeah. You know what? We need to talk to our good friends over at eBay Motors, because passion, drive, and patience, they're the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performances: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. That's eBay Motors. Hey, where is your hub for sports takes, sports information, sports news? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in sports. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Don't hate me, Mets fans. I actually want to see the Mets win. I want them to put together the next great team in New York. The other team that is hoping to be the team that quenches the thirst for non-MLS fans in New York are the Yankees. Now, there's been a lot of doom, gloom talk about the Yankees, and I've been part of it. but they're still a playoff team. Now, they lost yet another series. They lost yet another series in a wild, weird game against Tampa Bay, which ended with two very good pop-up catches by the infielder. One where there was a little premature celebration, but it was the Yankees lost 5-4. And they lost the series to Tampa Bay. And the Red Sox are only 2 games back in the loss column of the Yankees. And would it be something if neither New York team made it this year? That happened last year. I digress. The Yankees are still a team that are a playoff team. And one of the things that is interesting is despite this spiral that the Yankees have been on recently, and don't get me wrong, it is an absolute spiral. They're in their last 14 games, they're 3-8. But Baltimore's not been great shakes either. The Baltimore Orioles have not put the aft thrusters on and pushed the Yankees to the side. In fact, only 2 games separate the Yankees and first place, lest we forget. You know, the doom and gloom discussion with the Yankees, if they're one good month away from taking control of the American League East and one bad Baltimore month away. So one of the things I was thinking about is sometimes that great spark, sometimes that great change comes, and this is what I call the Eddie Rosario lesson. I've talked about this many, many times, that when you have a team that is devastated, and talk about a team that was devastated, the 2021 Braves had a losing record heading into the trade deadline. And somehow they saw this team that was decimated. They didn't have Acuna, they didn't have Ozuna, and they piecemealed together an outfield. And Soler and Peterson and Eddie Rosario, nobody looked at that as, oh my God, this is Rice, Lynn, and Evans. You know, this is one of the great outfields we'll ever see. No, it wasn't. It just worked. It worked. There was a major leaguer at every position. The major league players perked up and said, hey, we're playing meaningful games now. And they all charged their way. And Rosario was the NLCS MVP. Peterson got huge home runs. Of course, Soler was the World Series MVP. And it didn't cost the Braves a whole hell of a lot. But sometimes, sometimes we forget that these players are human. And there can be a sense of malaise if you're playing meaningless games. And there could be a sense of excitement if you wake up and said, holy Phil Esposito, this game counts. Which brings us to why the Yankees should be talking every day to the Colorado Rockies. They have players like Brendan Rodgers, Ryan McMahon, and Cal Quantrill. Again, those 3 players, not one person I just mentioned they're carving a plaque for the Hall of Fame for. But do you know what each one of those players are? They're all major leaguers. Ryan McMahon is a pretty darn good third baseman. Brendan Rodgers is a fine second baseman. One of the things we keep hearing about how the Yankees are just automatic outs after Judge and Soto. And if those 2 players press or are in a slump, then that you basically have 9 easy outs. So yeah, if you put McMahon and if you on the lineup and you put Brendan Rodgers in the lineup, oh my God, you have to bench DJ LeMahieu. Well, they should bench DJ LeMahieu. They should bench, Volpe at this point. They should, maybe they'll put a fire under Gleyber Torres' butt. But if you improve 2 spots in the lineup, if you made 2 spots in the lineup that are bad and you make them okay, then all of a sudden you have an extra hit. You have an extra run. And in some of these cases, that might be the difference. And maybe you don't have that sense of, oh, Christ, we got past Judge and Soto, so we can relax for the next bunch of batters, which is what pitchers have been doing. And speaking of that, Cal Quantrill, again, not a pitcher who is in the front running of the Cy Young Award, but is a capable pitcher, which is more than they've been getting from some of their spots. So if you have a spot coming around, oh, this pitcher's okay. Well, that's better than bad. Okay is better than bad. And I think if you also consider, if you take someone like a McMahon or Brendan Rodgers and you say, hey, you're playing for real now. Ryan McMahon has been with Colorado for the last 8 years. Ryan McMahon is a fine player, and he played for the Rocks when they went to the Division Series in 2018. He was there for the good times, but it's not been good for a while. He hasn't played on a contending team for a while, and he's been a good player for the last bunch of years. Imagine what you'll get from this all-star if suddenly you wake up and say, hey, these games are going to count. These are the types of trades the Yankees have to make. And if Brian Cashman was a decent GM, he would do this. I know Yankee fans want to see another huge superstar in it, but you also want to have the same ending that the 2021 Braves had. No one imagined that Marco Scutaro was going to wind up being the big acquisition of 2012 at the trade deadline, but San Francisco brought him in, and he was the exact spark plug that they needed to have. Hell, did anyone notice when the Red Sox acquired Dave Roberts? You don't always know. Cody Ross was picked up for nothing, and he became the NLCS MVP for the San Francisco Giants in 2010. He woke up one morning and said, oh my God, I'm playing meaningful games. The playing meaningful games and remembering that these players are human, say, oh my God, I've never been this excited in my life. And you have that additional spark. You have players who, if you put McMahon and Rogers into the Yankee lineup, all of a sudden you fill two holes. And you get a sense of excitement, and maybe that'll wake this team up. These are the type of moves the Yankees need to make. And it could help them win the freaking division, or at least secure a playoff spot. They won't cost you the best prospects. They won't cost you the biggest players. It is a seller's market, and the Rocks can hold out. But if it's the difference between that and not make the playoffs at all for this Yankee squad, who have to make the playoffs this year, there's a different situation for the Mets. If the Mets make the playoffs, it's a big surprise. The Yankees have to make the playoffs because they have to keep Juan Soto happy and have him want to come back. Yes, I know the main factor will have him sign anywhere is a huge contract. Soto would sign with the Colorado Rockies if they offered him the most money. Yankees have the money, but they have to show him, hey, this is where you want to be. And for the Yankees to do that, remember, mediocre or good is always better than bad. We come back, we're going to talk about someone who is great, and I wish baseball would let him show off his greatness entirely. And I hit the wrong button. Thus, the great peril of doing these live. But I'll tell you that we here at Locked On MLB pride ourselves on always hitting the right buttons. But we also pride ourselves in getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, the playoffs. It's year-round. What else is year-round? Collection seasons. Just because tax season is over, it doesn't mean the IRS won't stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts, Tax Network USA, go to bat for you. I've worked for a lot of different media companies, and sometimes they pay you in cash. Sometimes they pay you with a personal check, but almost always they stick you with a 1099 and not have taken any of the taxes out of it. If I didn't have the good folks at Tax Network USA working behind me, I would get absolutely snowed on April 15th with taxes that I owe, and it may put me behind the eight ball. With over 14 years of experience and an A-plus rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters like I had with those 1099s, or finally hit that parlay this season, need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. Be sure to mention Locked On MLB at checkout, and you'll receive $250 discount for their services. Hey, let me tell you something. There's one word I would use to describe myself, and that is clearly fashionable. It doesn't need an explanation. I'm sitting here with my Seattle Pilots shirt on, but a lot of times I have confidence in an outfit that makes me look really good. And that's what I get with Stitch Fix. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget. They do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. And you can get upgrades for your wardrobe with a professional stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. I just give my stylist my size, style, budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. They send 5 just for me pieces, outfit recommendations with pro styling advice. I keep what works and I send back the rest. My stylist always sends the right pieces and the fit is on point. It's like they have ESP. I don't know how they do it. They just get me. Stitch Fix makes it all so easy. I don't like to shop, and they save me that time and effort. Plus, I get outfits that make me look good. And if you don't love something, just send it back. Shipping, return, and exchange are always for free. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Now is the best time to get started. StitchFix.com/lockedon. MLB. Get $100 off. That's $25 off your first fixes. That's a limited time only. StitchFix.com/MLB. That's StitchFix.com/MLB. $100 off. StitchFix.com/MLB. Must redeem within 7 days of sign up. Offer does not include kid fixes. That's StitchFix.com/MLB. Hey, this is a reminder that Locked On has created the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channel app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local excerpts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available in the free Fire TV channel app. You know, I complained a few weeks ago when Ronaldo Blanco had a chance to throw his second no-hitter of the year. He had a no-hitter through 7, and he was lifted. And some other schmuck blew the no-hitter for him. And I just was like, oh, explain to me. He hadn't thrown tons of pitches. And, I mean, it's the middle of the season. I understand if it's the first start in the season, which, ironically, the first start of the season for him, he did throw a no-hitter. I understand that. But it's the middle of the season now. Arms should be at full strength, right? Right? Well, they took him out, and we don't get that chance. Today, Paul Skeens, who has been everything that anyone could have ever wanted. He has not lost a start. His ERA is 1.90, and earlier this year he was lifted after 6 innings of no-hit ball. Some schmuck on the Pirates blew his no-hitter. And I was like, okay. It's early. I was a little more forgiving for that. It was very early in his career. They realized that he is the future of this team. Well, today again, 7 innings, no hit ball, 11 strikeouts, 1 walk. He had not thrown 100 pitches yet. He had not gotten to 100 pitches, and out he came. Was lifted. Holderman let up 2 hits. Somehow, against all odds, Aroldis Chapman actually recorded a save. I hope they sent that ball to Cooperstown. But, I mean, I'm starting to really get tired of this. I'm starting to get tired of this because, you know, Paul Skeens is 22. I understand. Is having him go out in the 8th and 9th inning, is that going to destroy his arm? Isn't possibly having the Paul Skeens game where he throws a no-hitter? You know, he has thrown 50, he's thrown over 60 innings right now. Great. His ERA is plummeting. His strikeout to inning pitch ratio is eye-popping. His strikeout to walk ratio is eye-popping. He's pitching like an ace. And I understand. I understand you don't want to do like what Billy Martin did with the A's, or what Dusty Baker did with the Cubs and run the arms into the ground. I get that. But isn't there a middle ground between not running him into the ground, which, by the way, we got the All-Star break coming up, so he's got to have a bunch of days off. Yes, he's going to the All-Star game. He'll throw, 4 pitches if he gets into the game at all? Can't we have more no-hitters? Can't we at least try? You know, I mean, if it was a combined no-hitter, fine. But, you know, I don't understand. You know, things are supposed to be fun, a great memory. And I'm going to say it, Paul Skeens will probably have Tommy John surgery. Do you know why? Because everyone winds up having it, no matter how careful you are with them. The Mets had Matt Harvey in a bubble and Jacob deGrom in a bubble to make sure nothing bad ever happened to him. And things bad happened to him. The Washington Nationals would put Steven Strasburg into carbon freeze. There'd be Ugnaughts lowering him, and he'd be frozen like that. He still got hurt. So why prevent some of the fun things from happening? He'll get hurt. He's going to get hurt. I'm not saying it because I want it. It's funny. I remember in 2021, I was doing Lockdown MLB then, and 9 no-hitters were thrown in 2021. And people were actually saying things like, oh, doesn't this make no-hitters not as special? Now that they're kind of boring. Shut up then. Shut up now. They were fun then, and they're fun now. You know, if you bring him out in the 8th, lets up a hit, take him out. I totally understand that. But to have the Pirates haven't had a complete game no-hitter in literally decades. Would it be fun to see Paul Skeens throw one? I've talked long and hard. I think baseball is working hard overtime to end the aces. They don't want ace pitchers anymore. Ace pitchers are too expensive. And this is my conspiracy theory that a lot of the things to protect pitchers, pitch counts and all this, got to lift Blake Snell in the middle of a masterpiece because our computer told us to do it. I don't think it's the computer. I think it's the economists. I think it's the accountants saying the most expensive commodity in baseball is an ace pitcher. So let's create a world where we don't need them. I absolutely believe that. I absolutely believe that they're working to make sure, well, if we don't have the pitchers throwing complete games and everything like that, then we don't have to pay them like aces. And we saw the Cy Young Award winner going unsigned because it's like, well, we don't, ace pitchers, what does it matter? They're only going to pitch 5 innings anyway. And I think a lot of this, you're not seeing it helping the pitchers. You're not seeing pitchers going longer than they used to. You're not seeing pitchers being more durable than they used to. I think it's to make them exact opposite. So here we got Paul Skeens looking like the next great ace, and they're not going to let him pitch. They're not going to let him throw that no-hitter. We're not going to have the Paul Skeens game. Heaven forbid we do. All right, folks. Well, look at I'm not going to forget to ask the trivia question. We're running a little long today. So the trivia question is this. Who was the first Toronto Blue Jay to lead the league in homers? A lot of Blue Jay sluggers in their history, a lot of terrific Blue Jay sluggers in their history. Who was the first one to lead the American League in homers? It was not who I thought it was going to be. Met fans, don't hate me because I'm beautiful. I'm happy that the Mets are finally a playoff team by the skin of their teeth. We will see what happens. It's going to be a complicated couple of weeks because if you see a team starting to heat up, I would absolutely start jettisoning those players. I can tip my hat and be impressed, but I'm not going to concede I was wrong. And if it turns out I'm 100% wrong, I'll admit it. I'm not there yet. But I am here to tell you that you can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And be sure to check me out on Locked On A's as I'm dropping 5 of those a week as well. Talking about the Mets and being a little wishy-washy about it, giving the Yankees some advice, and please let Paul Skeens finish some games. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please let me throw a no-hitter and call me Sully.